I stood there, drenched in sweat, my duffel bag slipping from my hand as the security system chirped to life. I hadn't even taken a step through the front door when her mother's voice crackled through the speaker, low, cold, deliberate. "You've been replaced. She wants you gone." It wasn't a mistake. Lorraine knew exactly who she was talking to. She looked straight into the camera like a villain in a courtroom drama, eyes smug, chin raised, venom soaking every syllable. Behind her, the house I built, the house I painted, the goddamn house I paid for. I didn't raise my voice, didn't pound the door. I just adjusted my grip on the strap, stared into the lens, and answered calmly. "Got it, Lorraine." She smirked, thought she'd won. What she didn't know was that I had already begun rewriting the ending. Rewind just 5 days. My name is Ryan Walker, 38, architect, married to Samantha Walker, the woman I once believed was fire and silk woven into one impossible creature. The kind of woman who makes men forget how to breathe. The kind of woman who knows it and weaponizes it. I was gone on-site for a construction issue in Denver. I extended the trip by a day, last-minute site review. She knew. I even sent her a photo from the hotel lobby with the timestamp. She left me on read. But something felt off before that. Way off. 3 weeks ago, she stopped calling me Ree. 2 weeks ago, her phone never left her hand, not even in the shower. 1 week ago, she forgot our anniversary dinner reservation. Claimed work emergency. Didn't even pretend to be sorry. And then, her mother. At my front door. Blocking my return. I dropped the bag and walked around to the back of the house, heart pounding. Security gate. Locked. Camera above the deck, newer model. She upgraded the damn surveillance without even telling me. I crouched near the side window, angled just right so I could peer into the kitchen. There she was. My wife. In one of my shirts, unbuttoned. On the counter beside her, a bottle of bourbon I'd been saving for my brother's promotion. And next to it, 2 glasses. She laughed, tossed her hair. And then he walked in. A tall, chiseled idiot in a half-zipped hoodie and smug confidence. His hand grazed her waist. She didn't flinch. She leaned in, whispered something. He laughed. They toasted. Then she turned and looked directly at the camera. She knew I'd come home today. She wanted me to see. This wasn't an affair that spiraled out of guilt and confusion. This was coordinated, cold, calculated, and still. I didn't storm in. I pulled out my phone, hit record, captured their little toast, her little performance, his hand disappearing beneath the shirt. I backed away from the window like a ghost, sat in my car across the street and watched that window flicker for hours. Then I called Victor, my lawyer, told him to meet me at sunrise. I wasn't going to play their game. I was going to destroy the board. But first, I needed silence, control, precision. She thought changing the locks ended the chapter. She didn't realize. The book had just been handed to me. I didn't sleep that night. I parked 2 blocks down in my black SUV and watched my house like a detective in a stakeout movie. Except this wasn't a movie. This was my life unraveling, thread by thread, because the woman I trusted with everything had decided I wasn't enough and made damn sure I'd know it. By 3 a.m., the lights finally went out. I waited another hour. At 4:12, my lawyer messaged me. "Let's meet at 7. Bring everything." By everything, he meant evidence. And I had plenty. Screenshots, video, texts, financial records showing Samantha's recent activity, wire transfers to an unknown account, luxury purchases that didn't match her public story of just working overtime. I was going to burn the mask she wore and make her watch. At 7 a.m., Victor leaned back in his chair, chewing the end of his pen. "She's not just cheating," he said flatly. "She's setting you up for a clean sweep. This is premeditated. She's moved money, changed locks, and brought her mother into the game. That's not a mistake. That's a hostile move." I nodded, jaw tight. "How fast can we move?" He raised an eyebrow. "You want blood or survival?" I answered without blinking. "Both." He smirked. "Then we start freezing assets today. You give me power of attorney over the holdings. You disappear for a few days. Let them get comfortable. And when they least expect it, we pull the floor out." It was poetic, in a sick way. Samantha had treated me like a prop in her performance, decorative, obedient, blind. But I had been studying her script longer than she knew. By noon, I had already locked our joint accounts, filed for emergency asset protection, and set up a forensic financial investigation. She'd find out soon enough. At 2:44 p.m., I received a text from an unknown number. I think you should know what your wife's been doing. She brings different men to the house. One of them is a client of mine. She brags about how you're weak. Attached was a photo. Samantha, leaning on a different man's shoulder. Not the one I saw last night. This one had a tattoo down his neck and a face that screamed trouble. So there were more. She was collecting egos like trophies. I didn't respond. Didn't let it show. I just sent the photo to Victor. She wanted to humiliate me in silence. But I was done being quiet. She made me the villain in her fake story. Now I was rewriting it as the author, one brutal chapter at a time. 2 days passed. I went radio silent. I didn't text. Didn't call. Didn't even drive by the house. Samantha must have thought she'd broken me. She always underestimated silence, mistook it for surrender. But silence is where men like me sharpen blades. On the third morning, my phone rang. It was her. Samantha, 12:02 p.m. Hey. I noticed you've been quiet. Everything okay? She had the nerve to text like we were still good. Like I hadn't watched her play house with another man. Like I didn't hear her mother's venom firsthand. But I wasn't going to give her a reaction. Not yet. Me, 12:04 p.m. busy. We'll talk soon. She replied in under 30 seconds. Samantha, I miss you. Let's not fight. Fight? There was no fight. There was only betrayal and the quiet retribution that was already unfolding behind the scenes. That afternoon, Victor called. Ryan, it started. She tried to move $50,000 from your backup fund. Got blocked. She's going to panic. Good, I said. Let her. In panic she did. The next morning, I received an email, subject line. Let's talk like adults. Samantha invited me to meet at a cafe. Neutral ground. She picked one downtown, crowded enough to seem safe, quiet enough for a stage performance. I arrived first and sat with my back to the wall. Old habit. She walked in 10 minutes late, wrapped in a coat I bought her, sunglasses hiding the storm behind her eyes. Ryan, she said like she was reading from a bad script. I didn't mean for things to get so messy. I didn't reply. Just stared. I was confused. Lonely. You were always working, always tired. There it is, I cut in. Your opening line. It's my fault. She flinched. I'm not saying that. Yes, you are. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for her coffee. It was just one mistake. We can fix this. One. I leaned in, pulled out my phone, tapped twice. The screen lit up. Photos. Videos. Messages. Which one are we talking about, Sam? The guy with the hoodie? The tattooed moron? Or the one from your gym with the Mustang? She went pale. And then, like clockwork, her mask shattered. You really set me up, she hissed. You couldn't just let me go? You tried to erase me, I said calmly. You changed the locks. Told your mother to announce my exile. You wanted war. You got it. She stood up too quickly, chair scraping loud. You're pathetic. I smiled. And you're exposed. Her apology was never real. Her smile was just another weapon. But now she was out of ammo. I walked out of that cafe without looking back. Her eyes burned holes into me as I left, but she didn't follow. Because she couldn't control the narrative anymore. Because for the first time, the mask had slipped in public, and she knew someone might have seen the real Samantha Walker. Back in my apartment, I sat on the edge of my bed, cracked my knuckles, and opened the folder Victor had just delivered. Inside was everything. A list of property transfers made in the past 6 months. Land my money bought, now in her name. Jewelry purchased under our shared business account. Lavish dinners for clients that were really dates with gym rats and brand managers. And the worst part? She'd taken out a second mortgage. Behind my back. Using forged documents. Her signature. My name. I stared at it for a long time. My heart didn't break anymore, it calcified. This wasn't love gone wrong. This was treason wrapped in lipstick. I called Victor. Send everything to the DA's Financial Crimes Unit. Anonymous tip. Use the Dropbox we talked about. He paused. You sure? She didn't just cheat, I said. She robbed a man she thought was too loyal to notice. The next evening, I got a knock on my apartment door. I opened it to find Daniel, Samantha's brother. He looked exhausted. Red-eyed. A mix of shame and confusion. I didn't know, he muttered. Ryan, I swear. I didn't know she was doing all that. She made you cut me off, I reminded him. She told your whole family I was emotionally unstable, that I was threatening her. He nodded slowly. We believed her. She's always been persuasive. That word. Persuasive. She wasn't persuasive. She was manipulative. Calculated. A beautiful storm that destroyed everything in her path and then cried at the damage. Daniel handed me a flash drive. She used my laptop once. Left this plugged in. I didn't check it until last night. Inside were recordings, voice notes, laughs with her friends about how easily she was playing both sides. My name thrown around like a joke. One file stood out. She said, "If he ever tries to leave, I'll cry abuse." Instant sympathy. Quartz love that S***. That was the moment I stopped feeling anything human for her. No heartbreak. No regret. Only cold, calculated resolve. She thought she was the queen, moving pieces on a board. But I wasn't a piece. I was the executioner. And the final move was coming. The drive to the courthouse was silent. No music. No thoughts I could hear clearly, just this buzzing tension in my veins. A low hum of something darker than anger. Focus. I had filed the paperwork that morning. Divorce. Full asset disclosure. Attached every piece of evidence. Her voice notes. The financial forgery. The adultery. Victor said it was enough to win the case 3 times over. But I didn't want to just win. I wanted her exposed. In the light. Where everyone she ever manipulated would finally see her for what she was. I remember standing in the courthouse lobby, watching Samantha walk in. Designer bag. Oversized sunglasses. Phone glued to her ear like a badge of status. She stopped when she saw me. I expected a show. Tears, excuses, maybe even rage. But what I got was a smirk. Like she still thought she had cards to play. She walked right up and whispered, "You really think a judge will believe you over me? You look desperate." I looked divine. I didn't flinch. I handed her an envelope. Inside, color photos of her with 3 different men, timestamped and location tagged. A letter from my forensic accountant detailing the mortgage fraud. And a subpoena list with the names of her co-conspirators. She turned pale. Her hands trembled. But her mouth still moved. "You wouldn't. That's nuclear." I leaned in. "You replaced me like a pair of shoes, Sam. Now I'm burning the whole closet." She didn't speak after that. Just stormed out, heels clacking, calling someone. Probably her mother. Probably screaming. Let her scream. By the time she reached her lawyer, her accounts would be frozen. Her credit cards flagged. Her business partner, under IRS review. She played too many games. I just changed the rules. That night, I sat alone in my new place. Small. Clean. Quiet. I poured a drink, not out of celebration, but closure. And then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "You don't know me, but I thought you should see this." It was a video. Samantha. Sitting in someone's lap at a rooftop bar. Laughing, mockingly imitating my voice. "And he still thinks I cried that night because I missed him," she said, giggling. "I cried because I broke my nail on the other guy's belt." The whole table roared. I didn't react. I didn't need to. Because tomorrow, she'd be served. And the empire she built on deceit would come crashing down. Brick by brick. Lie by lie. Her throne wasn't gold. It was rot. And I had finally pulled out the last support. I thought her reaction would be explosive. Maybe screaming. Maybe threats. Maybe crocodile tears. But when she got served, it was radio silence. No calls. No messages. Not even a lawyer's letter. That's when I knew Samantha was calculating. She wasn't going to fight back immediately. She was going to regroup, find a new angle, and strike where I didn't expect. But I was done playing defense. 2 days after the papers hit her door, I got a visit from Lorraine. Yes, her mother, the woman who once barked through my own security system like she ran the place. She showed up at my apartment like nothing happened. A faux smile painted across her plastic-tight face. "Ryan," she said, hands folded like we were sharing tea, "this doesn't have to be messy." I tilted my head. "You mean like changing my locks and replacing me without notice? That kind of messy?" She waved a hand like I was overreacting. Samantha was just lost. Confused. "But you're a good man. Steady. You can't let this ruin your future. You two can still fix things." I stared at her. Really stared. She didn't care about me. She cared about optics. About Samantha's reputation. About what the neighbors would say. I smiled coldly. "Lorraine, I already fixed everything. The only thing left to clean up is the mess your daughter made." She narrowed her eyes. "You'll regret this." I leaned against the doorframe. "Maybe, but not as much as she will." And with that, I closed the door. That same evening, I got a call from Victor. "She made a move," he said. "Tried to transfer the deed on the Aspen property. Good thing we already froze it. But the attempt? That's illegal." "Charge her," I said. No hesitation. He paused. Ryan, this is going to be public. Good, I said. Let it be. She deserves the spotlight. Let the world see her final performance. I hung up and opened my laptop. My inbox was overflowing. Messages from old friends, colleagues, even some of her former allies. Turns out Samantha had burned more bridges than I thought. And now that the truth was out, nobody was rushing to carry her ashes. Later that night, I sat on my balcony, whiskey in hand, city lights blinking like distant warnings. This wasn't revenge for cheating. This was justice for being dismantled piece by piece while smiling through it. She thought I'd crumble. Instead, I watched her empire fall quietly, methodically, piece by piece. The collapse wasn't loud. It was surgical. The subpoena reached Samantha the next morning. I had been waiting for this moment, not because I wanted her humiliated in court, but because she'd finally have to stand still and answer under oath. No filters. No makeup. No charm. Just truth. Or perjury. Victor and I walked into the courthouse early. The plan was airtight. Expose the fraudulent loans, prove the financial abuse, and if we were lucky, trigger a full criminal investigation. But something unexpected happened first. Right before the hearing began, her business partner, Mark Holloway, walked in. Alone. Victor leaned toward me. That's her guy. I nodded slowly. One of them. Mark didn't look cocky anymore. No swagger. No designer sunglasses. Just a man with dark circles under his eyes and something to lose. He asked to speak to the judge. Privately. A few minutes later, the courtroom shifted. A recess was called. Then we were summoned to the chambers. That's when Mark dropped everything. Turns out Samantha had dragged him into several of her schemes without telling him the full extent. Loans taken in his name. A shell company under his SSN. Fake receipts he signed blindly. He flipped on her to save himself. And that? That was poetic. Because Samantha's entire game had always been control. She used people like props, smiling when it suited her, throwing them away when they were no longer useful. But now, one of her own pawns broke the board. I watched her enter the courtroom 20 minutes later. She didn't know yet. She looked confident. That same icy smirk. And then she saw Mark sitting beside the DA's investigator. The blood drained from her face like a faucet had been turned on. She looked at me, panic flashing behind her eyes. I didn't smile. I didn't nod. I just sat back and let the avalanche begin. By evening, her accounts were frozen permanently. The Aspen property was seized. Her passport was flagged. Lorraine tried calling me again. This time, I blocked her. Victor popped a bottle of bourbon at his office. You good? He asked, sliding me a glass. I'm not angry anymore, I said, taking a sip. I'm just done. He raised his brow. You think she'll come crawling back? I looked out the window. She's not crawling back. She's crawling in circles, looking for a new target. She won't find one like you. She never deserved one like me. I went home that night and slept for the first time in weeks. Deep. Dreamless. Final. Because the truth was, the final blow wasn't mine. It was hers. And she didn't even know it. The morning after the courtroom fallout, I woke up without that familiar weight on my chest. No dread. No second guessing. Just air clear and sharp, like the first breath after a storm. I stood in the kitchen of my new apartment, barefoot, coffee in hand, watching the city come alive beneath me. It wasn't the penthouse I used to share with her. No marble countertops. No designer furniture. But it was mine. Every inch of it. Victor sent me a final email that morning. The judge granted my motion for sole control over our joint business accounts. The forged documents were now part of a criminal case. And Samantha's lawyer had filed for withdrawal, a reconcilable breakdown in communication, they called it. She was officially cornered. I didn't respond. I forwarded the entire chain to a secure cloud drive and archived it. Then I turned off my phone. 2 days later, I received a handwritten letter. No name, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Samantha. The envelope was thick. 3 pages. Front and back. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't regret. It was blame. She wrote how I made her feel small, how I worked too much, how she had no choice but to find affection elsewhere. She even said, "You forced me to survive in a way I never wanted to." It was always the same cycle with her. Twist the truth, wear the victim crown, and pray that someone pities you enough to save you. But not this time. This time, I folded the letter in half and dropped it straight into the shredder. I saw Samantha one last time. 2 months later. Grocery store parking lot. She was walking alone, clutching a knockoff handbag, her once polished look replaced with something almost desperate. No ring. No entourage. Just her. Our eyes met. She hesitated, like she didn't know if she should wave or vanish. I gave her neither. I turned and walked away. And that's when I realized I didn't need revenge anymore. She'd build her own ruin, brick by lie. I just let gravity do the rest. Today, I run my company solo. No noise. No betrayal. Just results. I spend weekends fishing, laughing with people who show up because they care, not because they want something. And when people ask why I seem so content, I tell them this. Sometimes, the greatest peace comes not from winning the war, but from walking off the battlefield with your soul intact. She burned the bridge. I didn't rebuild it. I used the ashes to build a throne, and I never looked back.